Now, human beings are needy creatures, and we are, in a sense, very much in need of water, in need of food, in need of love, in need of security. But there's one thing that's better than everything on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that is, or those things are, books. Hello and welcome back to another video, and today we are going to talk about, or today we're going to discuss 10 books that really had a palpable impact on our lives. And if you're thinking to yourself, who's we? You know, there's only one person staring to the camera right now.
Hello.
This video is a collaboration with Clifford Lee Sargent from Better Than Food Book Reviews.
Thank you very much, Robin. Appreciate it.
And today, Cliff and I, we are going to go back and forth in and out of some of the books that have really had a palpable impact.
So without further ado, here are the 5 books that had a significant impact on me. It's been a while since I've read these, so hopefully I have everything correct. They're not fresh in my mind.
First book that really had a huge palpable impact on my own writing and on how I viewed the world and on some of the things that I really cared about was Jack Kerouac's On the Road. So I was just sipping my coffee at a bookstore and I was bored. I was looking for something to read and I was wrapping up my studies at the engineering school. I was trying to get something to read. I was trying to, get a recommendation from my boss at the bookstore, and she just handed this to me. And I thought to myself, what is this? And I read the blurb. At first, I was kind of hesitant. It's just like, there's a lot of sex and drugs. After I've read the first line, I first met Dean not long after my wife and I split up. I just gotten over serious illness that I won't bother to talk about, and I was hooked. I was hooked into the story. Jack Kerouac's novel is about this very agitated spirit of going out there and grabbing life by the balls. He wrote this thing in 3 weeks on scrolls of paper, typing non-stop in isolation, and just for the artistic value of this book, I think you should read it. It's one of the founding texts of the Beat Generation, which needs no introduction, and I think if you got a part of yourself that's fierce, that's very passionate about life, that wants to grab life by the balls, definitely give this book a try.
The first one I actually don't have a copy of on me, called The Invention of Morel by Adolfo Bioy Casares. This is a kind of ghost story / science fiction novel or novella from an Argentinian author who was a friend of Jorge Luis Borges. I think Casares was very young when he wrote this, but this was a massive success. It's about a fugitive who escapes to, I think, a Polynesian island, starts spying on all the inhabitants, and notices that they are constantly repeating their actions, and none of them can see him. It's also about a man who has created a machine to record and replay reality. And it's also about what happens if one were to fall in love with a ghost of a sort. I won't spoil it for you, as the details to the plot are sort of, they're a large component of what will make the book enjoyable. So I don't want to give too many spoilers. Hopefully I haven't already. I thought this was a phenomenal book and truly one of the great short novels that give you the most bang for your buck, definitely. A quick caveat, it's not the most straightforward book, so if at first you're confused, try again, because it is so worth it, seriously. I mean, get some supplementary material, watch a YouTube video. I have a review on it, maybe that'll help a little bit. You need to read this book.
The second book on my list is A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce, and this is one of the books that came into my life at exactly the right moment. I was debating between two sort of like career paths. Should I pursue creative writing, or should I pursue something more, should I say, more traditional, like a professorship in literature or in philosophy? This book right here, I bought it from a bookstore, and it came in, and I grabbed it, and I started reading it, and I just couldn't get out of it as I read this book on a bus, at a cafe, just on a bench near some stream somewhere in Melbourne. It just resonated with me so much that then and there, I figured that I had to become an artist. There are some beautiful passages in this book that you just have to read, for yourself. It's the perfect book if you are an aspiring writer, if you're some aspiring artist, and it's really close and personal for me, this one.
Number 2, Perfume, The Story of a Murderer. This is a stunning novel published in 1985 by the German author Patrick Süskind. A book about a young, creepy, slithery, quiet, Gollum-esque Frenchman who kills young women for their scent in order to create his own, as he was born without one. He was born without his own scent, yet he has an impossibly sensitive sense of smell. His intention is to create the most astounding olfactory experience ever unleashed upon humanity, right? That's his entire endeavor, is to create this scent of his own. And he does that by becoming a serial killer and extracting the scents of his victims. It's creepy, bizarre, it's quite unique. Interestingly enough, it also contains an homage to the novel Michael Kohlhaas by Heinrich von Kleist, which I recently reviewed. The first line in this book is an homage to it. In 18th century France, there lived a man who was one of the most gifted and abominable personages in an era that knew no lack of gifted and abominable personages. Yeah, it's good stuff. I think you will enjoy.
The following book on my list is Swan Suede by Marcel Proust. I read this book, the first time I read this book, I was at a holiday resort, and my parents, they were doing stuff downstairs, and there was like this there was this elevated balcony above the first floor where I just sat with a cup of tea and I just started reading this book, and it's just the perfect book for the perfect occasion. The book is not difficult, but it definitely demands a lot of your reading powers. Proustian prose is like music. It penetrates under your skin. It really demands your full attention to the musicality of the prose. Every beat, every sentence, you have to pay total attention to how Proust is describing certain things or how Proust is portraying certain characters. As far as the plot goes, there's not much of a plot that happens in the first volume, at least, which is the volume that I'm most familiar with. You really have to read Proust for the central descriptions. You really have to read Proust for the details and for the emotional articulations and everything along those lines. If you tackle this book from the correct mindset, and if you treat this book as a musical piece, it is going to transform your life. This book is essentially playing on the idea of that there are certain subtle experiences that are, in a sense, shared by the entire population. If you can penetrate deeply into this book, you are, in a sense, penetrating into your own consciousness. This very brief description is not going to do this book any justice, so I would recommend you to pick up this book and read it for yourself.
I'd say if you're going to tackle Swan's Way, this would be a nice follow-up if you're really into the style of Proust. There's definitely a similarity in the evocative descriptions of the senses unlocking memories. These are in no particular order. The Peregrine by J.A. Baker. I read this one recently. Imagine if I told you the most metal book I ever read was about bird watching. That would be the truth. That would be J.A. Baker's The Peregrine. This is the diary of a birdwatcher on the coast of England who follows a peregrine falcon, the fastest animal in the world, as it dive bombs out of the air, decimating other birds and consuming them. Gorgeous descriptions of the countryside, nature, birds reveal an inner loneliness and the desire of the watcher to embody the traits of this animal who needs nobody and is a symbol of independence, ferocious strength, and natural beauty. An amazing book. Epic in a way that is surprising. Given that it's just this guy's diary of following a bird.
And the next one on my list is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. I read this book in one sitting, and that should kind of explain how gripping the story really is. Some people didn't like the book, and some people found the book kind of boring, but personally, I think this book really defined how I viewed literature and how I viewed the purpose of learning. So it's basically an imaginary story about a society where all books were banned, where all learning was done through digital means, and where all the things around us demand our rapid attention, and where basically the attention span of the general population is essentially non-existent. This book is as fantastic as it is scary, because it is, in a sense, mirroring the kind of society that we're living in currently. If you care about the humanities, if you care about preserving books as great sources of wisdom, great sources of great lessons, and great sources of pleasure, this is a must read for you. Ray Bradbury is an excellent storyteller, and the way that he portrayed the society is just absolutely unreal. And I think if you are a fan of dystopian fiction, if you're a fan of Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, for example, if you're a fan of 1984 or any books from that can of worms, definitely give this one a try. It's one of the best dystopian novels I've ever read.
A book that I did review, but it was very bad, and so I'm going to re-review it, hopefully soon. J.G. Ballard's Crash. A brilliant piece of transgressive, semi-futuristic, dystopian science fiction horror, maybe, by the British author J.G. Ballard. This is a story about a man who gets in a car crash and in the hospital meets a man who leads a kind of underground group of people sexually aroused by car crashes. Car crash fetishists or something. They stage them. Right? Like they stage famous car crashes. The writing is exceptional. Again, very sensual descriptions, flesh fusing with metal, covered in falling glass, violence and eroticism coalescing, extremely original idea, brilliant execution as far as I'm concerned. Like, really proof that you can do anything in a novel if you put your mind to it. Truly dark, odd, beautiful. I'll be reviewing it soon. Check it out. Great film adaptation by David Cronenberg as well with James Spader. And Holly Hunter, I think? Yeah. And Patricia Arquette. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a doozy. Entirely for adults, meant for adults, 18 and over, 18 and over.
The last book on my list is a bit of a lighter read, which is Norwegian Wood by Murakami. Now, this book really took me by surprise. I picked it up on a whim, and I thought to myself, if I don't finish it, well, let's just not finish it. But I really became really immersed in Murakami's writing style. Writing has a sense of simplicity to it, and his writing has this undertone of, serenity to it almost, that it really draws you into the feelings of the characters, that it really draws you into some of these concepts that can't directly be translated into, wide awake language. There are a lot of underlying philosophical themes in this book that I basically can't really do it justice just in this very short segment. But I'm going to quote my boss from the bookstore where I worked at here. She basically said that reading Murakami's Norwegian Wood is like taking a hot bath. You're tracing the thoughts of the main character and you are going along with his flow. And in Murakami's writing, even some of the most ordinary things like eating a bowl of noodles at a shop, because this is set in Japan, even that becomes a moment of divinity. I think you'll really enjoy this one if you've enjoyed Jack Kerouac, if you've enjoyed Proust. It just has a very different feel to it than any of those two books.
And finally, The Trouble with Being Born by Cioran. This is just a book of philosophically pessimistic aphorisms by the Romanian philosopher Cioran, who lived in Paris. Imagine being confronted with and contemplating the worst of all possible truths in the universe, with the almost absolute and indisputable meaninglessness of not only your life, but all of those around you, and instead of crying, laughing. Imagine finding not a well of misery in the complete and total hopeless futility of life, but rather a joyful lightness. A kind of strange, like what are you gonna do? That's my ideal reaction when confronted with that kind of possibility, and definitely the one I had while reading Cioran. A man who fears ridicule will never go far, for good or ill. He remains on this side of his talents, and even if he has genius, he is doomed to mediocrity. There is nothing to say about anything, so there can be no limit to the number of books. Sometimes it's good to keep company with those who understand that the darkest humor is also the best for us, because somewhere therein, I think, is the truth that binds us all together and transcends our petty differences. As my favorite author once put it, one day this living world will pullulate in my dead mouth. That was George Bataille.
So those are all of our recommendations. Hope you guys really enjoyed this video, and be sure to go and check out Cliff's YouTube channel. He's all about obscure literature. He's all about finding the best books for the best people on planet Earth.
Thanks a bunch, Robin, for having me on, and happy Halloween to you and everyone watching. And if you come over to my show, then I hope you find something you enjoy. You can learn much more about the books I enjoy and the stuff on my shelf by going to patreon.com/books are better than food and donating $1 or more per video to the show. I'm about to upload the second part of my bookshelf tour, so yeah. There you have it, 5 books that had a significant impact on me. Thank you very much, Robin, for having me on, and happy Halloween to you and to everyone watching. Cool. All right, take care of yourselves. Ciao.